Hey, next on the T Nation, thanks for coming back and tuning in to part 2 of this week's show featuring my conversation with the great Paul Horton. Paul is one of the all-time great teachers and instructors in the history of our game. He has been named the PGA of Canada's National Teacher of the Year, plus the National Coach of the Year. He's won the PGA of Alberta's Teacher of the Year award several times and Coach of the Year twice. He's also a top 50 junior instructor. You can hear all about that in the segment coming up. I can't thank Paul enough for taking time out of his busy schedule to come and be a part of the show and share so many great stories and tips with us. So sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next hour or so. Before we get started, I want to remind you about our friends over at 2 Under. 2 Under men's performance briefs are the unofficial underwear of the PGA, Ryder Cup, and President's Cup teams, and are sold in over 3,000 golf pro shops and golf specialty retailers nationwide. Ricky Fowler is their global ambassador, and over 50 other PGA, Korn Ferry, and Champions Tour players wear them. Just to mention a few, they are David Toms, Jerry Kelly, Justin Thomas, William McGirt, Scott McCarron, and Chris DeMarco. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort from the tee box to the boardroom to the bedroom. Go to 2under.com to check out the bundle specials that offer substantial discounts for being a Next on the Tee listener. That's the number 2, UNDR.com. 2 Under, performance in your pants.
Every January, PGA Tour Superstore pros meet every manufacturer, learn about the latest equipment, log thousands of hours of training, and together hit over 100,000 balls. All so they can get you the perfect fit.
All right. Now making his Next on the Tee debut with me is Paul Horton. Paul is one of the most decorated instructors in the history of Canadian golf. Paul has been named PGA of Canada's National Teacher of the Year and National Coach of the Year. He's won the PGA of Alberta's Teacher of the Year several times and Coach of the Year twice. He's also a top 50 junior golf coach here in the U.S. He was named the PGA of Canada Coach of the Year 3 times. He's also Canada's highest-ranking aim point certified instructor. He's also a certified blast motion coach, certified in bioswing dynamics, and co-lead coach at the Golf Channel Academy at Heritage Point. Plus, he has his own golf academy as well. I've been following Paul for many years, and I couldn't be more excited that I finally get to have him with me here this week here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Paul, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Chris, love your show and honored to be a part of it.
I'm honored to have you. So, Paul, so much to get into tonight with you. You've had such an incredible career. You've achieved so many great things. When we were talking prior to the show, you were telling me how you grew up actually playing hockey and soccer, and you didn't start playing golf until you were around 16 years old. What sparked the interest in you to take up the game at 16?
Yeah, that's true. Everything was geared towards hockey back when I was younger, and I ended up playing at a fairly high level and got into soccer to get my legs in shape for hockey. And I got into golf when I was about 14 or 15. My dad got me into the game. And I just played once or twice on some par 3 courses during those years. And then I'm not sure what happened, but I got the golf bug at 16. I got injured in hockey when I turned 17, and that ended my hockey career. And I found a passion for the game, and I went out and really got hooked on it. And I rode my bike up to the local golf club at Mississauga Golf and Country Club and said, I'd like to have a job, but you don't have to pay me. I just wanted to use the practice range because I couldn't afford to go to the public ranges and hit as many balls as I was about to hit. So I ended up getting a job working at Mississauga, looking after the power cart fleet. So my day I didn't start till 4 in the afternoon and worked till about 10 at night. And I had all day from, say, 8 till 4 to work on my game and play and whatnot. And I really found my game in the dirt, just hitting, thousands of balls. I'd hit 1,000 balls every other day and a lot of putting and short game and pitching and whatnot throughout that. And then playing on the days in between. So I developed, a decent talent for it. Started shooting in the 60s a few years later, and that sort of put me on this path to where I'm at right now. So,
And Paul, as I've said on this show many times, for most of us, it takes us 10 years to just go from terrible to bad at golf. As you said a moment ago, you started shooting in the 60s after only a few years. How were you able to get so good so quickly?
well, it was a lot of work, and I this time I didn't get much formal instruction. It was basically self-taught. Just I learned what I could do with the ball, and I got good at what I could do. I had a sweeping hook back in those days, and I think a lot of the short game stuff maybe stemmed from after work with the back shop kids. We had a really nice putting green at the facility, and the lights would come on, and we'd have 36 holes of um, putting on Friday night, and there would be 7 players in this little tournament. We'd all throw $1 in, and the winner would get 5, and the second place would get 2. And after playing 36 holes, the top 4 players and ties would make the cut, and they'd play the next 36 holes on Saturday night. And we went through the entire PGA Tour season, starting with the Phoenix Open back then and whatnot. And I ended up winning every tournament. Now there's only 7 kids playing, but I was a really good putter back then, or developed my skills as a putter, and felt like I could take anybody on that wanted to challenge me on the putting green. So it that certainly helped keep the scores low. I knew what I could do with the ball, and just getting out and playing lots and hitting a lot of balls, which is what most people don't have the time to do. So that helped accelerate things for sure.
Well, you also got to spend some time with 2 Canadian golf legends, George Knudson and Moe Norman. Starting with Mr. Knudson, what was it like when you got to spend some time with him?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome when I reflect back. Um, pretty privileged to have these experiences. And back in the days after high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was asked to turn pro at a young age, and really didn't know that I wanted to go that route. And I was considering driving down to Arkansas to walk on as a walk on player there. And back in those days, that was somewhat more popular. And I had a buddy that wanted to go down and qualify for the team. And then George had just opened up an academy at the National Golf Club in Toronto, and he I had an opportunity to go see him, so I put some money together. My dad pitched in and went and got coached with George, and that was quite an experience. And I ended up not going to Arkansas. My buddy ended up making the team, and I thought I was a better player than he was, but I'm happy that I ended up staying north of the border and working with George and developing my skills, not only as a player, but understanding how he taught the game and whatnot. So really cool times back then.
George finished tied for second at the 69 Masters, just behind George Archer. Did
Yes.
he ever talk to you about his Masters experiences?
He didn't elaborate too much. He won 8 times, I think, on the PGA Tour. Really known for ball striking, and his weakness was probably the putter. I had a chance to play with him a few times, and the putter was definitely the weakest part of his game, but he was so pure, especially with his iron shots to the green, that he was never that far away from the hole. So it was hard to 3-putt. He just didn't make as many putts as he probably would have wanted to. So he was close back then, but he really didn't get into too much detail. And as a young kid, I was maybe not asking the right questions back then.
You also got to watch Moe Norman practice on the back driving range of a club in Toronto. Talk about watching him hit balls for hours and the time you got to spend with Moe Norman.
Yes, also a great privilege when I look back at those times. Mo was a different cat for sure, and but super talented. He came over to the club I was working at in North Toronto, and we had a secondary range that was secluded that nobody ever used. It was about 175 yards long, and Mo felt comfortable coming to the club on several occasions because he could practice on his own and not have anybody bother him. And as a young pro back in the early 80s, I got to know Mo a little bit and got myself invited down to sit on the bench and just watch him hit balls into his shag bag. And so I would just be fairly quiet on the bench and ask him a few things here and there, but it was tough to get really close to Mo just because of his personality style. But we had a pretty good relationship. And I later, back in 1992, I was a director of golf at a private club here in Calgary, and I invited him out to do a clinic. Now he was a little older at that point in time, and it was really cool to have him out in front of the members, and he just loved to do these clinics. Um, and that was a good moment for the membership. And I think he had the best mind in golf of anyone I've ever met. So he never really hit a bad shot in his mind. So he was always, that best shot he's ever hit is always at the forefront of his mind.
Paul, switching gears a little bit, you mentioned digging it out of the dirt a little bit ago. Hal Sutton, who's a wonderful friend of this show, and he's talked many times about how when he was coming up, and even when he was out on tour, when things would start to go wrong with the swings, he had to dig it out of the dirt, meaning that you guys didn't have the technology back then that we have today. He had to go out on the range, hit hundreds of range balls, and tweak his swing until he figured it out. You're somewhat like that, but mixing in the technology as well, as you kind of alluded to a little while ago. But talk about how you had to kind of figure it out on your own.
Yeah, certainly times have changed, and back then there wasn't the technology we have now, and so I remember practicing for hours on end, and became a really good long iron player, hitting off of clay, with really hard pan surfaces, and my swing was shallow at that point in time, and which made it easier for me to strike long irons off a tight lie or a bare lie. And my technique was maybe not the best, but I developed, as Arnie once said, swing your swing. That was my swing, and I knew what I could do with the ball. And nowadays, as a teacher and a coach for many years, I need to find out how I can make players better, as fast as I can. And keeping things simple, in my opinion, is always better. And I use technology as a second layer underneath the human element. So I'm really teaching people first, and secondly, I'm teaching people how to play better golf, and I'll use technology um, as I need to, but I don't use it as a crutch. Where I think some of the younger generation coming up might get stuck on that, where they're using technology without some human element to it. So there needs to be a blending of the both of those.
One of the many things that impresses me about how you go about coaching, Paul, is you were telling me that you coach the mind first, plus you help your students master their game first, not just master their swings. Talk about what you mean by all of that.
Yeah, back I was faulty of or guilty of teaching too much about the swing and getting stuck on cause and effect. Um, and in 2008, I decided to just become more of a coach and instead of getting stuck on swing mechanics. The swing is obviously a big piece of the puzzle, but it's only a piece, and there's so much more to playing the game and enjoying the game outside of the swing itself. So there's the mental side. There's on course play where you can have situational play. You can have on course strategy or things like that, or you can create different scenarios on the course, and so I try to get my students on the course as much as I can, and ultimately that's your ultimate testing ground, and can you play better on the golf course? So lots of players can hit the ball well on the range and not be able to take it to the course. So part of my process building some skill and talent with the swing and improving the technical side. But, there's, for the competitive players I work with, there's nutrition and fitness and sports psychology. And a big passion of mine is the mental side. As my dad was a psychologist back when he was working, and I was I reflect back in high school. I was even writing um, essays on sports psychology and golf psychology. So at a young age, it was sort of in my blood, if you will, and so it's a big part of what I do today is the mental side, and some of that comes through experience and intuition, and I think I have at least I've been told I have a intuitive talent to understand who I have in front of me and how they may tick, how they might learn, and really get to know that person better to more easily help them accelerate the learning process.
Paul, one of the many people that you've coached is another great friend of this show, Lisa Longball of Looswick. Talk about working with her and some of the other great long drive champions up there in Canada.
Yes, Lisa's fun to work with. I'm not sure if she's been on your show, but I know you're aware
Yes.
of. She's an 8-time Canadian long drive champion, and she came second in the world, lost by I think it was a yard or two. She's full of energy. She's got a huge following on social media. She does run golf schools across not only Canada but the U.S. as well, and I've been a part of those schools. It was fun working with her. She's not competing at this point anymore. Her son's about to her son's playing in the WHL hockey league, so this year's his draft year for the NHL. So fingers crossed for him there for Luke. But Lisa is just so much fun to be around. She's so energetic and she's very successful working with her ladies golf schools, and it was a pleasure to work with her, and just for a lady to see a female hit the ball 300 350 yards at times, it was pretty impressive. Also, I had a chance to coach Jason Zuback back in the day, and Jason's a 6-time winner of the World Long Drive Championship, and Jason's he's I guess a Canadian icon, but he's also a long driving icon because he dominated the sport where he won 4 years in a row, and now he's working with the Titleist Performance Institute on their speed and training, and he's also doing some force plate stuff. Um, anyways, I look back on those times, and it was a pleasure to work with someone of he was a they were both great entertainers when they did these corporate outings, but I learned a lot from them as much or more than I would be coaching them.
Paul, just a couple more before I let you go. And you've helped 60 of your students get college scholarships. You've coached 28 players who have ended up turning pro. I can't imagine anything more satisfying than watching your students grow in the game and then go on to reach their goals. When you sit back and not only look at all the awards that you've won over the course of your career, but also all of the lives that you have positively impacted and the people who are reaching their goals because they spent time with you, that has to be tremendously satisfying for you.
Yeah, it really is, and it's that's what really excites me about what I do, is seeing the joy that lights up on the players' faces, and it's one thing to work with a tour pro, and I've worked with a few over the years, and they're very talented to begin with, but to take someone from 10 or 11 or 12 years old and through their teenage years and watch them grow and compete, and then move on to college and then turn pro. I did have one student who was a high-ranking junior. He was the fifth-ranked junior in the world at the time, and he ended up getting a scholarship to UCLA. Um, and after he graduated, the coach told him that, I'll have you know that I recruited you over Colin Morikawa, who went to Berkeley instead of UCLA, and so pretty high praise for this kid, and
No
and
kid.
he turned pro after he graduated, and he won a few smaller events, and he ended up getting an opportunity to go back to UCLA and become an assistant golf coach at UCLA, and he's moved on from that, and he's uh, he's now going to law school in Wisconsin for the Badgers. So once a Bruin, now a Badger. But he's a really super kid, and there's a number of people that come to mind as we talk that have turned pro, and some are playing, some are teaching and coaching, and some have actually won PGA awards for teaching and coaching. So that's sort of the ultimate praise that I'm just proud of these kids and what they've developed into. So it's really nice to reflect back on that, and to have some influence on their lives, and making them better people, and better coaches and better players. So it's been a really fulfilling career so far, and I guess I'm not done yet. So full
Let's hope
steam ahead.
not. You started your own academy, and you have built something that is so wonderful and so positive and so successful, and so many wonderful students who have gone on to so many great things as we have talked about. And now your son is starting to follow in your footsteps. Talk about putting together something that you're going to be able to hand down to your son to carry on into the next generation.
Yes, that's pretty cool. So I'm a proud dad, and Chris is he's a really solid player. Played collegiate golf, and I think in his collegiate days he didn't have interest in teaching at all. He just wanted to play, as I think we all did back when we think about our years at school, and when we're growing up as late teenagers and early 20s. We want to all play, and I realized that I wasn't good enough early enough, so I started my career on the business side of things and the teaching side, and Chris is now his third year as a pro. He's going into his fourth season upcoming. Um, he's getting much better at coaching, and he's been around coaching his whole life, as I coached him since he was in diapers, and he's always had a keen passion for the game, and he went through a dark period in terms of he ended up getting tee shot anxiety, which there's various players that have gone through different forms of anxiety and whatnot, but he went in the dark for a few years. Lost his love for the game, and then he came back, and he's rekindled his fondness for the game. So he has a true passion, which is what drove me to start in this business in the first place. And um, he's getting recognized as a strong player. In the Canadian market. He tied for third in the Canadian PGA Championship this past season. Um, and he just played an event on this next tour golf, the TrackMan online tour, and he shot a 63 a couple days ago. So he was leading at one point at 63 at 9 under, and two guys have passed him. So he's holding strong, tied for third right now, which is there's about 750 players in this particular event. It's just a 1 day event, but it's pretty cool for him to see him evolve as a coach and a teacher. We have a strong program for competitive juniors starting at age 7. So we have a younger age bracket, and then we have an older age bracket for competitive kids, or kids that show proficiency in the game, and aspire to be more competitive. So with Chris going down that road and playing a bunch of junior golf. He's got the experience that and this, those experiences he can share with these young kids, and the young kids look up to him as a player. And we work together, working with these kids with team practices and individual coaching. And really, it's very cool for me as a father and just a dad, watching your kid join you in what has been a lifelong passion. So I'm thrilled to have him on board.
Paul, for people who want to work with an unbelievable instructor like you split time between your academy there just outside of Calgary, Alberta, and your winter club down in Scottsdale, Arizona, which has some tour players that are members there as well. When and how can people find you at either place?
Well, they can reach me at my website at paulhortongolf.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under Paul Horton Golf. I'm also on X at Paul Horton Golf. In the other channels, I've got a Facebook account with the Golf Channel Academy at Cottonwood GNCC, and also an Instagram account with GCA C Wood, so short for Golf Channel Academy at Cottonwood. So GCA C Wood on Instagram there. So there'll be various outputs on all of those channels. So you can always find me at paulhortongolf.com.
Well, Paul, like I said at the top of our conversation, I've been following you on Twitter for years at Paul Horton Golf, and I'm so glad that we finally got to spend some time together this week. I hope we get this privilege several times throughout the year, because the great things that you are doing for your students, like I say, 60 of them getting scholarships, almost 30 more getting out there and becoming professionals. You're invaluable, my friend, and all the wonderful accolades that you have had and the teacher and coach of the year awards that you have won. I hope we get to tap into more of your insights throughout the year.
Yeah, I look forward to the opportunity, and I should mention that we've started. I have a partner, and we've started a new company. It's a non-for-profit company called Golf Without Borders, and we're just launching our website here shortly, and we're just trying to build better communities through golf, and we're trying to introduce golf to underprivileged youth that we can help them get introduced to the game and learn some life skills and really build them into better people and hopefully through that build better communities, not just throughout Canada, but we want to expand into the U.S. as well and across the rest of the world at some point. So I look forward to the opportunity. It's been a pleasure being on, and I appreciate you and what you do with your show and what you do for golf.
The same right back to you, Paul. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to catching up with you again very soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.
That is the great Paul Horton, folks. Again, paulhortongolf.com is his website. At Paul Horton Golf is where you can find him on Instagram and Twitter, and GCAC Wood on Instagram as well. And I love that last part about Golf Without Borders, building better communities through the game of golf. I mean, look, folks, the wonderful thing about Paul, and so many awards, right? I mean, you talk about a PGA of Canada National Teacher of the Year and a National Coach of the Year and a PGA of Alberta Teacher of the Year several times and Coach of the Year twice, and what he's doing for junior golf layered on top of all of that. Those are fantastic and something he should be very, very proud of, and the things that he has been able to do with his coaching career over the years. But the thing that sticks out most to me is all the things that he has done for other people. And he talked about that a lot, about the 60 students that have scholarships, 28 players have turned pro, and really being proud of the things that he has been able to help those students achieve and the things that he is watching his son now do and achieve in the game. And then to want to continue to do even more with Golf Without Borders and building communities. I mean, what a wonderful individual. That speaks volumes for who Paul Horton is, beyond the game of golf, the things that he is trying to do and to achieve without talking about himself, but helping others. That is something that I just really think is very special about Paul. And then to think about all the great things that he has done for his students and the great things that he continues to want to do in the game. And like he said, he's not done. So there's a lot more for Paul to do. And hopefully we can have him back on the show and hear about all of those wonderful stories and the things that he continues to build in and around the game of golf. Thanks to him. We'll catch up with him, hopefully, like I say, a little bit later on this year. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow on this edition of Next on the Tee. I want to send out my sincere thanks to Courtney Weber, Rob Labritz, and Paul Horton for joining me this week. Scheduled to join me next week are one of the great tour players from back in the 1970s and early parts of the senior tour as well is Alan Miller. His wife, Cindy, is a wonderful friend of the show. This will be Alan's second appearance. Very much looking forward to spending a little more time with Alan. Our great friend and one of the all-time great grinders out on tour, Bob Friend Jr., will be back with me, as will Pittsburgh sports expert and one of the hosts on Sports Talk Radio in my hometown of Pittsburgh. You can hear him on 93.7. Paul Alexander will be back with me as well. So it's going to be an amazing show, folks. I hope you'll come back and be a part of it with us. I want to send out my thanks again over to the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review for hosting this show on their site for coverage of everything going on in Western Pennsylvania, including your favorite sports. Go to triblive.com. You can find this show by clicking on the sports section tab. You're going to find the most recent episode available for you front and center on the homepage of the sports section. Or you can click on sports and then podcast networks, and then you're going to see the Next on the Tee logo. If you click on that, many of the most recent episodes from this season, again, we just kicked off season number 12, so you'll get what we have so far this year, plus the end of season number 11. They're going to be available for you right there, front and center. You can also find the show on Good Pods, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Player.fm. If you have a favorite podcast network or app, you're going to find this show is probably available for you on there as well. And as always, my sincere thanks to the great folks over at Good Pods for making this show one of their recommended podcasts. So please download the free app and stream your favorite podcast right there on your favorite device. But most of all, like I say each and every week, my sincere thanks go out to all of you for being the greatest supporters in the history of podcasts. I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Until next week, hit 'em straight, my friends.